Is Chuck D. Head's actual head missing, or did Dr. Frankenstein just accidentally embed it in his chest? Or is Head the Skull his actual head given independent sentience? These are the questions that keep me awake at night. Wow, how haven't we done a video on Decap Attack for the channel yet? Let's get that rectified. Decap Attack is a 1991 platformer from Vic Tokai that puts you in control of Chuck D. Head, a mummified corpse that is unwittingly brought to life by Dr. Frank N. Stein and tasked with saving the world from an invading army of underworld monsters led by Max Decap. Armed with your trusty Scully pal Head, you have to run and jump around numerous stages, defeating monsters, collecting items, and defeating bosses to restore the world by fitting the numerous islands back together to form the visage of a giant skeleton. Islands are humorously named after different body parts like Abdomen Land or Elbow Island, and there's just an air of playful silliness to the whole game that really leans into its cartoon aesthetic and sense of humour. You can even do the Looney Tunes style running in the air before falling if you skid off platforms. It's no secret that the game started life as the 1990 title Magical Hat no Buterbi Turbo Daiboken and was heavily reworked into Decap Attack. It's not just a simple reskin either. Stages have been entirely redesigned, all the artwork has been redrawn, and the game gives you a health bar so it isn't as punishing as Magical Hat, which featured one-hit deaths. I used to be quite down on Decap Attack because I wasn't as big a fan of its artwork, which draws from horror iconography and is often quite drab and brown, while Magical Hat is a very colourful game in comparison. But even though I prefer the look of Magical Hat, it can't be denied that Decap Attack isn't the better playing game, and it's definitely the more forgiving experience. Each island is split into 3 stages. The first 2 require you to find the exit while jumping on enemies or using melee attacks to defeat them. If you find Head, then you get an additional projectile attack to use, but once you take damage this is taken from your arsenal. Skilled players will want to keep Head active for as long as possible, as he really makes the game more manageable as you get bombarded with more dense attacks from multiple enemies at once. The stages also contain hidden items that are stored in shrunken head statues. Bust these open and you can add an array of different potions to your inventory screen, which can be activated at any time to give you an advantage. The Light Ball potion in particular lets you deal some pretty hefty damage to bosses, so that's an important one to look out for. The third stage of each island mixes things up a little, as you are required to find a specific item before you can clear the stage. The third stage is also home to the boss battles, and these require you to study the boss's attack patterns to find the best opening to deal a ton of damage. Once this stage is completed, then you get access to a bonus game. These can only be played if you found some hidden coins in the shrunken head statues, as these are used to then buy in a series of chucks that scroll vertically up an Amidakuji game, where the chucks are forced to turn at junctions. Once they reach the top of the screen, then they can win a prize or fall down a hole, and these prizes range from power-ups to extra lives. There's a surprisingly large amount to do in Decap Attack. That's a game that at first glance looks like a silly little mascot platformer, but its tight control and great stage design reward players who want to explore. I would say that visually it doesn't hold up as well as its gameplay, and you can really tell that this is an early Mega Drive title that lacks the detailed and colourful visuals that would be treated to as the system matured, but that's my only major complaint. It would also be remiss of me not to mention the wonderful Decap Attack comic strip that appeared in Sonic the Comic, a pet project for the writer and artist Nigel Kitching that basically allowed him to go absolutely wild with some of the silliest work he could muster and put it in front of loads of Sonic fans in the 90s. It honestly goes to some pretty wild places, but it's always funny to read. It really added some great variety to Sonic the Comic, which was largely focused on more action-orientated comics over anything comedic like Decap Attack, and it outlived a lot of other Mega Drive adaptations that the comic would run in its early days before Sonic basically took over the entire thing. Decap Attack has a lot of notoriety nowadays as a Mega Drive title that is often included in modern Mega Drive compilations, and I think it's become a bit of an unfair whipping boy in that regard, because it feels like people often regard it as a daft little filler game made to pad out a compilation. But it's a great game in its own right, and it deserves your time. It's fun and responsive, with intricate stages to explore, and some really tight controls that never let you down. It's also got a great sense of humour and the cartoony visuals to match it, even if they haven't dated as well as other Mega Drive games from this era. Maybe they're just not to my taste, but either way, it's difficult to deny that Decap Attack doesn't shine in all other departments. Definitely give this one a go if you've been shrugging it off as a trashy piece of compilation filler, because it's so much more than that.